So now we've got this kind of laid out. I'm going to use a table that I've made. This is a welded plate with the tool rest is my son's old weight bar. That fits in here. With that spacer, now that's going to give me, my router's going to sit on here. And it's going to be, I have a router. It's a Bosch router with a little stand I made. And the router bit is a 1-inch diameter, 90-degree. You've got to make sure it's a V cutter. They make 90-degree cutters that are not ground all the way to the end, to the tip. And when you use them in a router table, you can plane a board or whatever, put chamfer the edges of anything, and it works beautiful. But when you go to cut a V, that square on the end puts a flat bottom in the slot. This is a V cutter. And it's going to sit on here and go like this. As soon as I get it all set up, the indexing now is not easy. This is half of it. Working on everybody else's lathe, the height and everything else is all different, and you're not too sure where you're at. But anyway, this part is going to go into the. This part is going to go down in the bed of the lathe. Move this out of the way, and I think I can move all this out of the way, I suppose. This is going to go in the bed of the lathe. This is kind of neat. There's a pin in here. So when you put this in the lathe, it's going to go down between the slot. When you turn this to tighten it, it turns 90 degrees and hits this pin. And that lets you tighten it. When you loosen it up, and when it turns this way, it hits the pin the other way, and it's parallel to the lathe bed, so it lets it release. So I'm going to put this in here now and turn this with a flat screwdriver until it tightens up. It doesn't have to tighten up real tight. It just has to hold it in that slot. That's a little big. And then this part goes up and down. Register my 0. I have to take the chuck off. Once I take the chuck off, I can put my indexing wheel on here. This takes a little while, but it's got to be set up right, because the register on this has got to be the same as what you've got on the bowl. And if it isn't, your inlays are going to be cut at a different angle to the bowl. This is my indexing wheel. This is masonite. It's been screwed to a lot of different things. But anyway, it's every 5 degrees. There's a slot. I've cut a slot in here, and this fits over the spindle onto the boss at the back. And you screw this on here like this. This is not the chuck, but it's the nut that holds things in place, or the nut that does it. And now, this is a piece of plywood, but it's also a tool. When I set this on the table here, that's exactly the height of my cutter, so I know where my cutter's at. Right now I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to tighten this. I should have done this before. I've got a smaller key at home, but Got a lot of things at home. It should tighten. I'm tightening this in here now because this now is going to be, that's where my table has to be parallel to this bar that's in here. However, I want this to 0, so I want to loosen this and turn this so that it zeros when I clamp it on here. I want this to be parallel to my indexing wheel. That's pretty close. Doesn't have to be exact, but I like it pretty close. That's pretty close. Now I can take this out. And now to set this at 0, I bring this out to wherever I have to be. Move this over. This thing, I don't know if you can see this. This thing now has a bolt through, a carriage bolt through here. There's a carriage bolt through here with a wing nut on the other side. So now we've got this wheel locked on here with a chuck. And I've got this board locked in here that this is set at 0. And I want the 0, when it's at 0, I want that thing to be parallel with the table. So I've made this slot so I can raise this up and down. And I want it, if I want it exactly right, I can even measure this with a ruler. And then I can tell. It's 2 3/4, 3. So I want this to be up a little bit, just a touch. There's a touch. 2 3/4, 3. So this. Just to go up a little bit, I didn't raise it. Okay. And 3, almost 3. Perfect. So now this is parallel with the table. Doesn't look that way, but it is. That means when I put this in the chuck, my 0 line now is registered with this plate, and it's parallel to this table. So I can take this out of here. And I can put this in here. Pause. Okay, now the chuck, this table, when I bring this table up here, I can see that that's 0 to 0. It's parallel to this chuck. I'm set at 0 over here, so my register is right from here to there. Okay? Now, lower this, get it out of the way. I'm going to put the bolt in here, like that, and I'm going to move it to this side here. So this is parallel now. My center line that I put on here before is parallel to the table. Let me lock this down a little more. And I'm going to bring this around now to where that's, you could actually see it this way. to where this is centered now on our register right here. This is parallel to this. So I tighten this up. Now I want to move it off center. And I could show that over here. I'm going to move this off center now, this way. So that the center's over here. That's it. Yeah, there it is. And I'm going to tighten this up. That saves you measuring. You could measure the offset. You can measure the offset up here, but this way you've got it exactly on center. So now I know, after all that, I know that this is parallel with this. Should be, yeah. And I got this out of touch. And I can drop this down to here. Get to the slot here, right there. And now, I know that this right now is going to hit, this should be 0 here, which it is, and it should be 0 here, which it is. 0 there, and 0 there. Nothing to it, huh? Okay. Make sure this is tight. Now, the depth of cut is set. There's a shelf on here. So this is my depth of cut. The router sticking out, whatever depth that is. But I'm going to cut the first one at 0. And I'm going to bring this in. It's going to be parallel.